Today I'm going to set up a Debian template inside Proxmox. I'm doing this so I can quickly deploy Debian virtual machines whenever I'm working on a new project. And if you're interested in seeing how I do this, come check it out. I've decided to use Debian for my home lab because it is a community-driven project and it is the essence of open source. So in order for me to create a template from it, I'm going to have to download an ISO that I'll use to install on a virtual machine. And to get that, I'm just going to use this download link here off the debian.org website. I'm going to right-click on it. The pop-up, I don't think you'll be able to see, but it gives me the option to copy the link address. So I'm going to click that, and then I'll transfer over to Proxmox here, and we'll have to sign in. And then we're going to have to download that ISO. As you can see here, I'm already in the local storage, and ISO is highlighted. And I'll click on the download from URL, and I will just paste in there that link that I just copied, and then I'll hit query URL. And as you can see here, it found the ISO file for installing Debian, and we'll download that. Then when that's done, I'll create a new virtual machine to install it on. Alright, the download finished. You don't have to sit there and watch it, but I had nothing better to do. Now, in order to create a template, we start with a virtual machine. And I'm going to put this one 900, because that's the range I'd like to keep my templates in. I'll name it Debian, template, like that. And here's where that ISO we just downloaded comes into play. You'll select that for the ISO image. The system, I'm just going to leave it as a BIOS system, but I do want this QEMU agent available. I will install a program that interacts with that in a second. 32 gigs should be big enough for my template. I'm going to give this all of the cores on this system, and I'm going to give it 14 gigs of RAM. I'm giving it 14 gigs because that's about how much free memory I have. And I only have the one network bridge, so we'll leave it at that. And we will start after being created. And that did not take very long. The virtual machine has been created and it is running here. So I'll go full screen so we can install Debian. I don't need that open. I'll use the graphical installer. These settings are going to be user specific. I do speak English and I am from Canada. I also use an American keyboard. Okay, so we got to put a host name on this VM, and I'm just going to call it Debian template again. This is just temporary. As you'll see in the future, when I make new virtual machines from this template, it's going to get a whole new host name. I don't have a domain. Now I want to give this a root password. A really strong one would be advisable. And you also have to create a non-root user. I'm just going to call this one temp because it's only for the install. And I will give it a password. Hopefully I typed that right. Good. Select your time zone. Now this is where I'm going to deviate a bit from the installation program. If I use the guided use entire disk on here, it's going to give me a separate partition for swap. And if I have that on there, it's going to inhibit the cloud init program that I'm going to be installing later on. So I'm going to go to manual, select my hard disk, and just do a simple partition on here. A single one. I'm going to use all the size I can get on there, and I will use ext4. Now this is asking me, you don't have any swap space. That's how I want it right now, and I will fix that with a swap file later on. And we'll write those changes. So this is going to create the partitions, and it's going to install the base system. So when that's done, I'll be back. Alright, so the base system is installed, and now it's asking me to configure the package manager. I do not have any additional media, which is what it's asking right now, so I'll just click continue. And it's asking me to configure the package manager by location. I'm just going to use the defaults because I've never had a problem with them. Though technically I might be able to find a download mirror that's closer to where I'm at physically. I've never found the need to do that. So I'm just going to use the standard configuration. So here it's asking if we want to participate in a package usage survey. I'm going to say yes to this because this being a community-driven project and no cache is changing hands, I want to support these guys as much as possible. This will help with keeping packages up to date with the most used services. And since this is just going to be a server and I won't have any graphical desktop environment needed, I'll get rid of those two, but I do want an SSH server on here. So this screen here is warning us that the bootloader is about to be installed. If we had another operating system installed here, it might make it impossible to boot into since this is not seeing any other OSs. But since we don't have anything else installed on here, we can just go ahead and hit continue, select the disk that we just installed on, and click continue. Alright, so the installation's completed. When I click continue here, we'll reboot, and then I will make some changes inside the new VM. Alright, so we're booted into our fresh install of Debian, and I'm going to log in as root to make some final changes. So first and foremost, I want to make sure it's up to date. I use the web installers, so it should be up to date from the install, and it is. So the first things I'm going to do, I'm going to install a few packages that I want. I want to install Vim because that's my preferred text editor. I want to install QEMU guest agent. Guest agent. And then I want to do cloud init. And cloud init's going to do some magic sauce for us later on. Ramifus grow root. So with these 4 packages, I'll have everything I want installed on my template. Great, now I've got the packages that I want installed. I've got a few more tweaks to do, like for example the temp user that I created. If I look at the home directory, you can see that it's got its own directory there. So I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to use the user delete command. I'm going to use the R to remove the home directory, and I'm going to get rid of that temp user. And that looks like that worked, so I'm going to look at home again. Perfect, nothing in there. If you remember in the install process, I wouldn't allow a swap partition to be created. At this point, I'm going to create a swap file. This will work just the same as a swap partition, but it's going to allow the file system to be resized when we reboot with Cloud Init. So in order to do that, I have to use the dd command, and I believe it was dev0. Yeah, yeah, is the input file, and then my output file equals swap file. And I'll just put it in the root file system. This will have a block size of 1 megabyte, and I will give it a count of 2048. So this will give me a swap file of 2 gigs, which is a lot considering how much space there is, or how little space there is on this hard drive. But it'll allow me to use it even when I resize the file system. So I gotta change the permissions on this to 600. That is swap file. And then I also need to make swap. And this will format that swap file so that it can be used for swap. That's good. So I want to be able to load this up as swap on boot. So I need to edit the etc fstab file. And I'm just going to do an echo command here. We'll call that swap file. Oh, I can't remember all the settings here. It's got to be none swap SW00. So we're going to echo that to etc fstab, and this will append that to that file. So now if we cat etc fstab, you'll see that that swap file line is there at the bottom. That's what we want to see. The last thing that I want to do is disable the root user. I don't like leaving that open as a vector point for attack, even though this is only in my home lab. So we'll disable that by editing the etc passwd file. And in order to disable it, I'm going to get rid of this bin bash and disable shell usage by copying this user sbin no login. So we'll yank that, paste it there, and this template should be good to go. Right now, the template effectively has no users and cannot be signed into again. And that's how I want to leave it as a template. So I'm going to shut down now. I have 2 more things left to do. I want to go into hardware, and I want to add a cloud init drive. We'll just use local storage for this again. So if I want to deploy this template with a different user on different machines, I can do that using cloud init. And we'll go to the cloud init settings, and I got to change a few things here. I'm going to give this the Hardwood Home Lab user. Give it a password. And if I had an SSH key, I could put it in here and it would automatically populate when I started a new VM. So this is ready as a template. I'm going to right click on the virtual machine and convert to template. Yes. Perfect. It's done. You can see the icon changed here, and we're ready to use this to create new virtual machines. As you can see in the cloud init settings here, as you deploy it, it should upgrade the packages when it's booting up for the first time. It'll also change the host name based off of what you've created. Okay, so the template is ready to go. I'm going to give it a test drive. We'll call this one temp because I'm going to get rid of it when we're done. I'll do a full clone, and then we will clone this guy. And I didn't show this, but the cloud init settings did copy over from the template, so this Hardwood Home Lab user should be in there. Alright, so that took about a minute for it to create the new virtual machine, but it's ready to go now. You can see the hardware is all the same as that template that we had, and I'm going to go to the console here and boot it up. We'll see what we've got. Alright, so it boots up. You can see here that the host name was changed to the VM name we created, and we'll see if my user was installed. And it was. If I try switching to root, the root account is disabled. So this is kind of how I wanted it to look. Let's take a look at my disk usage. I've got 132 gig drive. Let's see, free. My swap is loaded up and is looking good. So that's exactly what I wanted from this template. I also should check here. The QEMU guest agent is working, so it's reading the IP address from the virtual machine, and that means that Proxmox can interact with this virtual machine for things like a safe shutdown. So I'll try that. I will click the shutdown. Yes. And you can see that Proxmox was able to safely shut that down. And the last thing I want to test is if I can resize the hard drive. So we'll go to disk action, resize. Let's give that another 32 gigs. We'll resize the disk. As you can see, it went to 64 gigs there. I'll boot this up one more time. Well, and you can see right there that it resized the disk. And if we look at the disk usage, it's showing we've got 63 gigs now. And that's perfect. That's how I wanted my template to be. By doing it this way, I managed to get a few packages into the template that I wouldn't have got if I'd have downloaded a cloud image from an outside source. So that's how I'm going to leave this today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.